This government meeting is brought to you by Eastworks and our local cable subscribers.
Good evening. Today is Wednesday, June 25th, 2025. It is 6 p.m. This is the Zoning Board of Appeals for the City of Easthampton. It is both an in-person and a Google Meet hearing. First item is there anyone here who's looking to speak on any agenda item that is not currently on the agenda for this evening? Not online. Not online? All right. So the other thing, I'd like to introduce our new board member. And you may introduce yourself, sir.
I'm Jesse English. I've been a resident here for 12 years. So just get involved.
Well, welcome to the board. We look forward to your contribution. Oops. There we go. Got to turn that one's on. There we go. Perfect. All right.
John?
Yes, sir.
I misunderstood the question. Are you asking if anybody wants to speak in favor of any of these?
Not on the agenda. All right. So our first hearing this evening is Elizabeth De Silva, seeking a special permit pursuant of Ordinance 8.5 of the zoning ordinance. Applicant is seeking approval to construct an accessory dwelling unit greater than 900 square feet. The property is located in an R10 zone district of 7 Nipfer Ave, map 145, lot 110. Anyone here to speak to that? Okay, if you could please approach the board there or the podium and explain what you'd like to do.
Hello, everyone. My name is Nick Riley. I'm here as president of Van Riley Construction, here representing Elizabeth and Frank De Silva for 7 Nipfer Ave. Does everyone have a printout of? Okay, very good. So our request this evening is relief from the board to build an ADU unit over the allowable limit by roughly about 400 square feet. As you can see from the first plot plan there, the proposed building would be no less than 27 feet away from the neighbor's property line or any property line, and up to 85 feet. We scaled this down as much as we could to try to get as close to the allowable 900 square feet. And as you can see from the packet, we have a proposed building plan that I spoke with the building inspector about. Although he's not the authority over this, I just wanted to speak with him to make sure that he didn't have any concerns. So I'm here this evening requesting relief on behalf of Elizabeth and Frank so that they can live here. Their son currently lives in the existing house, and answer any questions or concerns you guys might have.
Okay. Anyone on the board have any questions for the applicant?
You mentioned that you scaled as much as you could to meet the 900 feet. Could you elaborate?
Yes, sir. So in the initially, we had spoken about a little larger bedroom and such, with the requirement of having 2 bedrooms for the applicant, and trying to create a future accessible unit on that second floor. That was as small as we could get within that limit.
So it's 36 by 30.
That's correct. We're very close on the main living floor. The overage comes from the entryway on the first floor over to the stairway, and you can see there's a small guest bathroom down there as well.
I guess I'm a little confused. There seems to be two different plans, so I'm trying to figure out which one. They both have the same footprint, so it's not a big deal.
That's correct. Yes. One is a layout of the first floor, which is just a garage with a small mudroom and guest bathroom. And then the second floor is the main living area. Okay.
All right. Is there anyone in the audience who has any questions for the board relative to this application? None online. None online. All very talkative this evening. You can see. Heat's gotten the best of us. Okay. Well, at this point, we will close the public hearing and have board discussion. You may sit if you'd like. Thanks for your time. Okay. So by right, they're allowed a 900 square foot dwelling.
Correct.
Okay.
If my calculations were correct, there's roughly about 1350 what they are requesting, and I believe their primary dwelling was about 1400 square feet. So
Precisely 50% more than the allowable square footage.
it's a lot more than what's allowable, but
900 plus 450, 13. I put in my calculator earlier today.
the idea here is, again, if it was 900 square feet, it's completely allowable by right, kind of no questions here. Anything beyond that requires a special permit. And it really is a question for you folks of, does that overage here, which is the whole point why we're here, does it still fit into the intent of the ordinance? And that's really completely up to your discretion here, whether this, whether or not that fits.
If they were to build a garage, would they need a special permit?
Yeah.
And if they just built a garage, that wouldn't take into consideration the additional space. Okay.
If they built a garage with a 900 square foot unit, would need it.
Then they would need it. They would need it.
If they decided to build a garage that was 1,300 square feet and then put 900 square feet of livable space above it, they also would not need anything. And that would fit the intention of the ordinance. I don't believe that in its current form it fits the intention of the AG ordinance. That's my personal.
That's why we're here. Okay.
And just if you'd like for everyone's review, and just so it's online for the record as well, go ahead and just share the purpose there. Add inexpensive rental units to the housing stock to meet the needs of smaller households, both young and old, making housing units available and attainable to low and moderate income households who might otherwise have difficulty finding housing within the city of Easthampton, address the housing needs of Easthampton residents, permit the owner of a detached single or two-family dwelling to construct one additional unit on the lot, protect stability, property values, and residential character of a neighborhood by ensuring that accessory apartments are created only in accordance with this ordinance, and legalize conversion to current compliance with state building code. So that's the biggest lens by which to evaluate. Everything else is just more procedural as opposed to any sort of intent. Yeah. And the question here really, the board feels that it meets that intent, you have the authority to grant.
I personally feel that the intent is to allow production of smaller units of housing that can be put on the market for more reasonable rates, given the number of single-family homes that exist in Easthampton today. I think that the ordinance's inclusion of a 900 square foot limit is intentional, and I think that 1.5 times above that limit is too much to match up with the purpose behind it.
It was 800 square feet, right, until last year, we upped it.
No, it's been 900,
It was
that's-
800 before.
But that is only the limit of by right.
That's true. That is true.
Okay. And it
But-
doesn't stipulate, and I think the other thing is you can't have an ADU that's larger than
correct.
your own.
And it actually technically doesn't say that, but again, kind of implicitly by being accessory dwelling, it shouldn't be large.
Right. Which is one of the stipulations that then they had.
So it's really,
Being that you need to build a bigger house in the backyard.
I mean, I think the point of the ordinance is to allow building of smaller units for stock and affordability by right. But I don't think it's also to make it easier to build another house. I don't think that's part of it. Even though, like, yes, we could do that, and I actually do think this house should be built, I don't think this is the ordinance that it should be built in.
Well, that's not.
Essentially, they're trying to make a duplex. Is what it sounds like. 2 equal units attached.
Correct.
Yeah.
Right, so that's different than the ADU. So I personally don't want to set precedent of this ADU ordinance being used to build houses.
Okay.
But that's me.
No,
I will
and
vote
that's,
for-
that's why we come to these meetings. So we have varying views on the board.
Even when we think about our definition of accessory, that means it's incidental and subordinate to the principal use. I don't think this ends up being that up to the size and just the scale of it. It's like a house that's there in terms of floors essentially as well.
Okay. All right. Tony?
I don't think it needs to be.
Yeah,
Okay. So what I will ask is someone can make a motion. Remember, motions need to be made in a positive manner. And you can still second the motion and then vote against it if that's so your desire. Okay.
If I make the motion, do I have to vote for it?
No.
No. Okay, I'll make the motion. I make a motion to approve the special permit for Elizabeth DeSilva pursuant to 8.5 zoning ordinance for a accessory dwelling unit greater than 900 feet in R10 district at 7 Nipford Ave, map 145, lot 110.
Motion's been made. Motion has been made and second. All right, all in favor? Opposed? Okay. Unfortunately, your application did not get approved. The decision will be written. There will be an appeal period. Once the decision is written, you will receive notification from the town city clerk's office, at which point there's a 20-day appeal period. And from that point. Right? Thank you very much. Okay. Next application. Chris, I'm sorry if I don't pronounce your last name correctly. Sutra. That's how I was going to pronounce it. Chris Sutra is seeking a special permit pursuant of zoning ordinance 8.5 and 12.7 of the zoning ordinance applicant is seeking approval to construct a 902 square foot detached accessory dwelling unit. And within the required setbacks, the property is located in the R40 zoning district at 154 Hendrick Street, map 170, lot 14. If you could step forward and please present what you'd like to do.
Hello, my name is Chris Sutra. I'm the owner and president of Sutra Building Company. Here on behalf of Wes and Shelley Hardy at 154 Hendrick Street. We're looking to build a handicap accessible ADU for Wes's mother who's aging in place. She has medical issues that makes mobility tough. We have on page 2 our 902 foot option. It's 25 feet from the tax setback. It is 50 feet from the front, and it's slightly more than 25 to the side setback. It's attached by a breezeway to the house currently. At this point in time, there's page, I believe it's 6 and 7, there are two slightly larger options that we're motion towards. One is 1,100 square feet and one is very close to 900 square feet. The reason for this is a caretaker to stay with June for her end of life planning, as well as supply her with that accessible space.
Okay. So my understanding is you have to have one set plan in your application. You can't kind of come in and pick a card, any card, right? Or have they presented options and then thereby we can make a decision from there if we so desire?
Yeah, my understanding is you certainly can do that one. My only confusion here was to get clarity on we advertised this as a 902 square foot detached, which is something that the applicant just might want to consider to check with the city solicitor. Would that create an issue with notification? And his opinion is that probably not, but it could open the door for an appeal if the board would approve the higher one, but that's on the applicant of whether or not they're willing to take that risk or if they'd want something re-notified. But the board could certainly move forward.
All right. Thank you for that clarification. Does anyone on the board have any questions for the applicant? And if you want to look online to see if there's, oh wait, we're talking board version. On the board. Okay, is there anyone in the public that has any questions for the board pertaining to this case? If you do, please state your name and your address.
Also, play this
And
the
if you could step up to the podium, sir.
cameras pick it up.
Promise myself to be quiet. I didn't know anything about this until I received this letter from you. It's addressed to Ruth Francis GLE, Ruth Linda J. I assume that Ruth Francis GLE would be me, Fran Ruth, 153 Hendrick Street, directly across the street from this application. Any of you that know me, John, know that I have a huge history of this address of 154 Hendrick Street, part of my grandfather's farm. He moved here in 1898. But I, Francis P. Root, give my wholehearted support to these petitioners, and at this time, I have no further input. Thank you very much.
Good evening, Suzanne Colby, 150 Hendrick Street. I'm a direct abutter to Wes and Shelley, and I am in full and complete support of all of their requests for his mother. Thank you.
Wes Hardy, 154 Hendrick. So I guess my only question would be if it's the case that we're not able to do this the way that it is being presented, or in any of the ways that it's being presented, I would love for a way to figure out how to do it in a different way. I do think, because I was listening before, I do think that it does make sense to sort of not let the ADU thing swallow like regulation, because it could get weird where people are building accessory dwelling units that are like palatial next to their home. And I think the purpose of it too is not to create like, oh, I'm gonna like create like passive income with like a rental. Like I think that also is like not the purpose of it. On the square footage thing, I think when you're talking about someone who's disabled, like the circles in there is for wheelchair. So like we're not trying to build like a palatial place for my mother. I want to be sure that when she can't move around, she has space to maneuver. So yeah, that's, if we can't do it this way, then I would just want to work with the board to figure out a way to get it done to basically move my mother next door.
All right. Is there anyone else who'd like to speak pertaining to this application? All right. Go ahead.
So the one that was 898, we have in this package, what was the,
What was the,
898 square feet?
yep. What was your question again?
What was the reason that's not?
It's the second bedroom. So we're looking to have a caregiver stay in the house with June.
So there's a 902. So the 902 square foot unit has one bedroom.
Correct. And it's attached to the house by a breezeway.
Okay.
And the access from the house is through kind of a hallway created in the garage. It's being filed as a detached ADU because the breezeway is non-conditioned space.
Okay.
The subsequent, all the other options are detached, and their plot plans are following the concept.
Okay. I misunderstood that.
Can you remind me the size of the primary dwelling?
Is the size of the primary dwelling?
The primary dwelling is, I believe it's in the realm of 16 to 1700 square feet.
Okay.
So
All right. Any other questions for the applicant? All right. Thank you. At this time, we'll close the public hearing. Oops.
No one's online.
Okay. Oh, it's online. Let's see. All right. Discussion among the board.
This one's definitely less time than the last one. Also, like, it's hard for me personally. I definitely think that it should all be built. I don't think anyone should be restricted from building these, but it's not my view. Yes.
I mean, if I may, consideration here, and maybe it might have been the best of the applicant to articulate perhaps why they wanted an ADU. You know, certainly the intention, I think, is in there specifically for this type of use, and the request here for the overage is to make it handicap accessible. I think maybe a consideration for you folks. Of course, knowing that once it's built, what's the future use? Kind of like anything.
Handicap accessible, affordable housing, yes, please.
Yeah.
Maybe one day, far in the future. But like, I do think that this should be a thing that exists, and I think it also should be solely indiscriminatory to say, no, you can't have your second right or hallway because we're restricted to 9 square feet. You know.
You think 13.5 is a little too high, you know, now the question is 11.5, are we getting closer? Were you folks feeling that?
Does the porch count in the square footage, or is the porch not count?
It does not count for habitable area. It counts for setbacks, but not for, space.
But now, we had a case a couple months ago where we had an attached ADU that, because it was considered an ADU, did not have to meet the rear setbacks. We remember that. So they are going over and above to meet the setbacks of front, side, rear yard, everything. Where they technically, because it's an ADU, they didn't have to. Right?
Yeah, I feel like there's full intent to, it does not feel like trying to take advantage, especially just bringing multiple options and one that's then also demonstrates willingness to work with.
And
Okay.
it's two square feet, right? So if you cut a 2 square foot corner off of it, then it would fit.
I mean, there's multiple here. I don't, that's exactly what's the apps specific. That those don't have two bedrooms.
Probably asking, can we build the biggest one, and if not, can we build the next one, and if not, just build the next one?
Well, and I think that what the approval could be, the motion could be made to approve building an accessory dwelling unit not to exceed 1,158 square feet. And then it basically puts the onus back on the homeowner as to which one they decide they want to build, but we've given them permission to go up to, but not to exceed that square footage. If that's what we decide.
I wouldn't be inclined to support anything that's that high.
Well, then,
To me, the intent of this is to create like one bedroom apartments.
And unfortunately, it's unfortunate that the ADU ordinance itself did not really consider the caretaker or by way of the code, that you kind of have to, in order to meet code with the bedrooms, you have to. So limit the ADU ordinance in order to.
You'll point out that since you mentioned, Mr. Chair, that last ADU that we had approved was at about 1,100 square feet. So, and for that at a previous hearing as well. And again, with that waiver provision, it does grant the board a lot of authority. So that question of what does the ordinance say? That's really your discretion. Does this fit the idea of the ordinance of creating a handicap accessible home that has the ability for a living caretaker?
Is there an option that's somewhere between 900 and 1,200 square feet, or 1,158, like closer to 1,000 or 1,100? Not yet. I imagine that if I said there needed to be, then you would be. Yeah. Of course, this does take into account. It's not that we can all just vote yes or no. We have to pick one. We vote yes on it. We vote yes on one.
it will, and that's why I'm saying we can make a motion that says any up to,
Not allowed small.
they could build smaller.
I would recommend the board not do that one, because we just have to have in the conditions in there that it has to be built to the plan set forward, and that leaves it open to kind of change the plans to something the board has not reviewed. If the board would want to see something smaller, I would recommend that pick that number of where you think that is, continue the hearing, and then allow the applicant time to revise their drawings and come back with something that fits the board's criteria.
It's an option. So if they lost the 2 square feet, it would be all right.
Well, if they lost the 2 square feet, they wouldn't have to be here.
Right, but I'm also trying to think is there a way that they could do something that instead of being instead of being based on that 900 square foot plan, could we tell them to come back with a slightly reduced version of their 1,158 square foot plans that would be even better for them and also acceptable for us? That's the maximum that we're okay with.
That's,
There's so many options.
they're on. That's why we're here.
This makes sense, but my head keeps going back to future use. I understand the intent now of what this is looking like down the road.
In that lens, which way do you swing?
I sway towards saying no to the 1158 because of future use.
mean, so if the only thing in front of me was the 902 square foot one, I'd say yes. 1158, I am, it's edging out of where I'd be comfortable. I remember that 1100, I was like,
Okay. But it is the ideal, the intent of the ordinance is that by right, up to 900 square feet. Beyond that, they have to come for approval.
and we can do pretty much whatever we want, which is it's so dangerous.
It's very dangerous.
It takes so much time. Tell me what to do.
These are the rules. Play by the rules.
Tell me the rules.
So the 1100 or whatever the one is, what he's asking for here is the 902, right?
Well, I think they're asking for whatever we're up to accept.
Well, in the 1158, the intent of the 1158 is that they have 2 bedrooms, one for the caretaker and one for the occupant. And as you said in the previous hearing, offering 2 bedrooms so people don't have to share a bedroom. So, thereby increasing the population of rental units.
Yeah, I bet that's square footage.
Again, I just brought up, just the language for the waiver, special permit for accessory dwelling unit. Any requirement under section 8.5 may be waived through the issuance of a special permit from the zoning board of appeals, provided the board finds the proposed accessory dwelling will be substantially consistent with the purposes of section 8.5 and will not have a detrimental impact on the neighborhood. We've heard from folks in the neighborhood, support, and then it's that question of purpose. Given the use today, does that fit the purpose?
Yeah, I mean, looking at the square footage of all the rooms and the difference between the 898 square foot. Like you said, I think second bedroom and not having to share one. I understand that.
Remind the board as well that every special permit is unique. You're not ruled by precedent. So given the circumstances of the case today, if you get another application of 1158 square feet, circumstances may be different. You can certainly evaluate that. You're not obligated to grant that special permit again in the future. So, each board should be consistent, but yeah, you're not constraining yourself in any way.
All right. So with that said, any further discussion, thoughts, concerns?
And with that said, given the difference in the fact that this is going to be subordinate to the primary residence, I feel I'm swayed to be okay with the 1158, even though I might not be next time.
You reserve the right to change your mind. Yes, you did. All right. Someone like to make a motion?
I make a motion to approve the special permit application from Chris Sutra, special permit application from Chris Sutra, pursuant to 8.5 of the zoning ordinance to construct a 1158 square foot detached accessory dwelling unit within the required setback. With property located in the R40 zoning district at 154 Hendrick, map 170, lot 14. Specifically, this is relevant to page 7 of the submitted packet of plans with the 1158 square foot plan.
Motion has been made. Second? Second? Okay. All in favor? Opposed? Okay, the motion carries with 4-1 vote. As I said earlier, the decision will be written up over the next couple of days. Depending on the holiday next week, hopefully you'll get notified, at which point you'll get a notification from City Hall, which then there's a 20-day appeal period, after which point then you have to file it with the Board of Assessors. Registry of Deeds. 15 years by now, you know. Registry of Deeds in Easthampton, and you are then going to also the property. Thank you so much. Getting oh my. You can stay or you can leave. That's your call. All right. The next application is Bojana Debek seeking a variance pursuant of Section 13 of the zoning ordinance. The applicant is seeking approval to demolish 2 existing porches that are pre-existing non-conforming on a 4-family home, construct a larger single porch that will extend 3 feet further into the front yard setback. The property is located in the neighborhood business zoning district at 18 through 24 East Green West, map 136, lot 32. Step forward.
Ask for permission to share a visual that might help with my explanation.
Sure. Thank you. Okay. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Bojana Dabek, and my husband Chris, who's sitting in the second row there, and I own the 4-family property at 18 to 24 Pleasant Green West. We also own several multifamily buildings adjacent to this one. We are very proud Easthampton residents as well as landlords for 22 years, and with a personal mission to create well-maintained properties for tenants. It gives us great satisfaction to know that our tenants have a good living space that's very well maintained. And so we're respectfully requesting a variance to allow us to improve the living space for our tenants and make their porches usable for them. Today, the porches do not even allow room to fit a chair. This enhancement would make the space functional for the tenants and appealing to the neighborhood. This is our primary objective. To make the space functional for the tenants and appealing to the neighborhood. The 2 small middle porches of this 4-family are part of the entrances to each of the apartments, and you'll see that in the first picture, the 2 middle small porches. They are significantly smaller than the porches for the remaining 2 apartments. These 2 small porches need to be renovated. It's time for them. As you can see, they're worn, and we would like to improve them for the tenants while we're renovating. As you can see from these pictures that we're sharing, that there's an empty space between the 2 porches. With your permission, we would like to eliminate this empty space by constructing 1 porch with a dividing wall in between and slightly increasing the depth with ample space to the sidewalk. So we're taking into account the fact that there's still ample space to the sidewalk. This enhancement is not out of character for the properties in the area and is not unique to the neighborhood. What we're doing is matching to the other porches in the same building and others on the street. For example, on the third picture that you have there, there's a 4-family directly across the way, 17 to 23 Pleasant Green East, which has at some point over time connected their porches in the same way. And you see that in the third picture. And if we're allowed and given permission, if we were to connect these porches, we would be using different materials, more kind of a screened-in porch, but the same concept as that third picture that you see there. Now, it's very important for us as we're proposing this to keep neighbors in mind and put ourselves in the shoes of our neighbors. And this porch enhancement would not be a nuisance to neighbors or impact them negatively, nor would it be a health or safety hazard. This enhancement would not diminish the value of the properties in the area. And as you know, these are the structures that are built in the shape of a U around Pleasant Green back in the 20s. And for some reason at that time, they did not allow for ample porch space for the two middle apartments. They did for the others, but for the middle ones. And so we're asking for your permission to fix this and improve the space for our tenants. Hopefully you consider this a relatively minor modification, considering that over the years we have kept the buildings well maintained, and over these 22 years, the entire area has significantly improved. So we're very proud of that. So thank you for listening and for considering our request.
Does the board have any questions for the applicant? First of all, what is the front setback for that zoning?
Pull that up. If you give me just a moment here.
Because it's pre-existing non-conforming, but we need to know what is the conforming or non-conforming portion.
Does pre-existing non-conforming matter at all?
Unfortunately not. The little bit of history going into this, we were evaluating it, pre-existing non-conforming, which is defined in state law. One of the things that our zoning ordinance does very well is just kind of reiterating what state law says. And pre-existing non-conforming extends to single and two-family homes only. And it doesn't apply to 3 or greater. They do not get that same protection from zoning that single and two-family homes get. And this is, we said R10 or NB district?
NB.
Sounds about right. And I believe the proposal in front of us would extend that further into the setback.
But at the end of the day, it doesn't matter, because it's not like we have the opportunity to ask ourselves whether or not it increases non-conformity. It's just not even a question of asking. Right?
Correct, because that's that would be the evaluation for pre-existing non-conforming. That's not the criterion that we are evaluating.
So like whatever, I guess. Oh, it's so frustrating.
But the front setback is 15 feet.
And I see that this building, it says 14'8". Oh, wait, no, that's a different measurement. Sorry, no, it's
The building
10 plus 3 plus 3, so it looks like 16 feet from the sidewalk.
So the building itself is compliant.
But across the street, I imagine that they also were probably built exactly 16 feet back, and at some point they either got permission or maybe didn't build that porch.
Yep.
Yeah. People are building porches out into
15 feet for any permitted structure or principal use. If I'm not mistaken, I believe the entire building is
16 feet. 16 at one end and 18 at the other, I believe. Or no, not 16 at the other.
Yep. So yeah, the building is conforming. The porch, either of the porches, the existing porches are also non-conforming, pre-existing non-conforming for setback.
So if we could do a pre-existing non-conforming, I would say, could you make the porch not go any further into the setback? And we'll say yes, because I think it does increase the non-conformity, and as she states, perfectly in character with the neighborhood. But I guess that just doesn't matter here because it's a 4-family home. And if there were 2 walls in the middle, then we could do that. Because there aren't, and it's a 4-family home, we just can't do that.
May I say something?
Of course, of course.
It's very interesting the way these buildings were built, because they have firewalls brick firewall going from the ground all the way up. So you could literally, it's like 4 single-family homes brought together because they're all independent. Basement, first floor, second floor, firewall. Basement, first floor, second floor, firewall. So it just so happened, in the buildings that we have, are exactly the same, except that it might be 2 or 3. I don't know if that helps, but I just wanted to add that.
I mean, it makes perfect sense. And I personally, I agree with everything you've said, and I see absolutely no reason you shouldn't be allowed to build a porch. Unfortunately, because of this very specific rule around 4-family homes, like, we're required to, as a board, find that not granting this would be a worse situation. I mean, there's some specific findings we have to make around variances that are much harder to make than it fits the neighborhood character, and it's definitely a good thing.
So if we look at the big 4 that we have to meet for a variance. Number 1.
The variance must be with respect to a particular parcel of land or to an existing building on the land. Check that one. Check. Number 2, the request for the variance is due to circumstances relating to soil conditions, shape, or topography of the land or structure, especially affecting said land or structure, but not affecting generally the zoning district in which it is located.
I don't think can I say pre-existing non-conforming setbacks as a issue with the topology or placement of the building?
Unfortunately, no.
I'm just thinking, and the fact that there is an easement on the other side of the building, and the fact that we wouldn't be able to create living space on that side. Not sure. I'm maybe that's C. Not B. Maybe I shouldn't be bringing that up now, but it is a hardship that we cannot create outdoor living space for the tenants in any other spot but the front. And to be fair, to have equal space for everyone.
So the back of the property has an easement.
Yes.
That doesn't count?
No, this is one, and I'll just read through the email that I sent the applicants here, which is just, hello folks. This email is a follow-up on our conversation about your variance application. I have received your application and I will have you on the agenda for the Zoning Board of Appeals June 25th meeting. As I stated during our conversation, it is your right to go before the ZBA. However, Massachusetts General Law, Chapter 40A, Section 10, prohibits the grant of a variance unless the ZBA can make specific findings. ZBA must make, in order to grant the variance, are as follows. I list the 2nd, 3rd, and 4th findings. And then I go on to say your application fails to directly address all of these required findings. Among my responsibilities to advise applicants of the requirements. It is also my responsibility to advise the board in making fair and defensible legal decisions. It is the opinion of the planning department that the ZBA would be in violation of state law if they would grant this request as it is presented. Kind of the back and forth of this while working with the building commissioner and the applicant is there some way to do this under pre-existing non-conforming? The conclusion there is no, there's nothing in there. Generally speaking, I am sympathetic to the applicants. I am generally, if you can, my philosophies, if we can do it, do it. I would have been inclined to grant that first ADU. So I might even be a little bit more permissible than members of the board here because there was a path forward to do so. This one here, as I evaluate it, it just doesn't meet the criteria of a variance kind of anywhere. Even in our last 2 variances that we've granted over the year and a half that I've been here with the board, both of those were still on relatively thin ice, but we were still actually addressing the criteria in the variance. Would it have listed an appeal? Maybe, but this is not even, there's nothing unique about this lot that doesn't affect the zoning district more broadly. All the other buildings are subject to these same requirements.
Hypothetical question. If these people across the street who already have their porch, and who knows how long they've had it, and they're still not able to use non-conformance as a thing because it's for family. If they wanted to knock down and rebuild the porch on the same footprint, they couldn't do that. They could only knock down.
They could only knock down the porch. Generally speaking, I don't want to speak for the building commissioner, but something that certainly could be done and often is, whether it's necessarily our community or others, It's the ship of Theseus where, well, you want to tear down the porch and build a new porch. Well, it's pre-existing non-conforming. You can't. It's like, well, you can repair the roof, then you can repair the walls, then you can repair the floor. The next thing you know, you've built a new porch without building a new porch.
It could not be any bigger than the existing.
But it would have to, you can only maintain what you currently have. So if these folks were, again, wanted to tear down their current porches and even build what they currently had, they also couldn't do that. But again, if the approach were repair the walls of their current porch, repair the roof, repair the floors of the current without expanding it, that's a different question. And that's a question, again, for the building commissioner. But
Yeah, I think that's, you'd really have to be you know what, if you want it to be that kind of building.
yeah,
So if we had purchased the two families on Pleasant Green West, we would have been better off than. I mean, just because it's 4 townhouses stuck together.
It seems like the mass general law is much more forgiving to 2-family structures than 4-family structures,
That's my hardship.
which I think is really silly, but
Well,
I think a lot of states are like having over 2.
That's my hardship.
that's
That's
your hardship.
my hardship. I have now been, by making a decision to purchase this 4-family.
Does that constitute a hardship?
that would not.
Why wouldn't it be, Dylan?
Well, if a hardship, if Massachusetts general law says you are not allowed to do this, then everyone who wants to do it could always claim a law saying they're not allowed to is a hardship. Therefore, every law is invalid because it creates a hardship for people who want to buy it.
Are you considering the 4-family a business? Is that what you're saying?
No,
it's not up to us to unfortunately, just because it's a 4-family, apparently, according to the Mass state law, that's all that matters, and we can't say yes.
So if it was new construction, let's start back. If they wanted to build a new 4-family, they'd have to be 15 feet off
It's true. It is brand new.
if it was brand new.
So that's sort of I guess that's the primary standard of
That-
comparison. for
That
the
is,
sake of- according
if,
to the mass state law, they want us to enforce the same steps. 2-family, they seem to be a little bit more lenient, where if it was not conforming before and you want to do something and it's still not conforming in the same amount, then it can be allowed.
as long as you're not going to be any more non-conforming. And so then if you use that principle,
It's a different test.
then they could put a porch on as long as it was not any more non-conforming than the existing. But,
Love that.
well, but at least that has rationale. That we can justify. Can I ask a question? Oh, well, yeah, actually, we'll open it up to public comment in a minute. So,
again, the pre-existing non-conforming simply has no bearing in this case. It simply doesn't apply. There's no section in there for 4-family, to the extent that, and I can actually even pull this up here if you give me a moment, because it is worth looking at, which is,
I think from that last variance request we had, where they were trying to build on the lot that also is in Easthampton. Dylan was helping us find ways to make it work. I think Dylan wholeheartedly believed that it could be defensible. But I think Dylan is telling us that there is no way he believes that this could be defensible, and we could all be in legal trouble if we allow it. That's what I'm hearing from this.
it essentially, just generally zoning is you are allowed to make whatever rules you want for zoning as a community. They can be whatever you want. It's broad discretion, but once you make your rules, you have to follow your rules. And courts have been very, very clear that once you make your rules, stick by it. If somebody comes in like, well, hey, I kind of want to do something, it's reasonable, This was something that had been going on, I think, up until maybe the 60s or the 70s, when courts came out with this standard of saying you can't just waive your rules just because somebody asked you to. You make your rules.
Because your friend comes before the board.
You stick by them. And this is a case where it's essentially asking us to waive the rules because they're inconvenient, which is not something the board has. What we have is pre-existing non-conforming uses, pre-existing non-conforming single or two-family residential structures, pre-existing non-conforming non-residential structures, pre-existing non-conforming uses, structures, or lots changed to conformity. So there's not even a section at all in here for four families. There's no relief for anything above two families. That whole pre-existing non-conforming, this is.
What is the risk to the board and the city for approving this variance?
The risk is that if we allow, by definition, a variance has to meet these four requirements. And they have to be defendable in land court because they could all possibly end up in land court. Should someone say that didn't follow the rules, I appeal that decision. So we are the board that people can appeal the decision of the building inspector, but still above us is the state land court that then can come back and say, well, in that 20-day appeal period, someone can appeal the decision. And we have to have been able to say, this was why we approved it. We looked at each one of these four criterias, and we can clearly define why and how. And that's the onus that we have in order to grant a variance. And in the state of Massachusetts, variances should be few and far in between. If I'm trying to think of an example of a variance we've granted, you know, a lot is triangle shaped. It's has a ravine on one side and I don't know, a variety of other things, but that would then, we'd still have to just, we all agree that it is.
In that example, like unique characteristics of that lot that doesn't affect it. Unique hardship in not being able to construct a home at all with the allowed setbacks, while also like being engineering sound with a ravine or a giant storm.
So can I?
Hardship is the number one most difficult hurdle.
So if we were to connect the porches, but not increase the depth, is that a possibility as well? Staying within the same footprint of the existing and just extending out for them to connect?
That's what I was hoping would be possible, but as we've been talking about the pre-existing non-conforming, the standard that you're held to for a permit is the same as a new building. And if you were to build this building exactly where it is today, you would not be allowed to put any porches on it. So, because of the setback. So to build anything at all additional within the current setback, and as we were discussing, if you were to knock down one of these, would ones to somehow get demolished, that could be problematic trying to rebuild it. So when you do go to renovate these, make sure that you are repairing them, not knocking down and rebuilding them, because the first one is allowed and the second one isn't. But building anything in addition within that space in front of the building is not permitted because it wouldn't be permitted for a new construction.
Okay. Well, with that said, let's open it up to the public. If there's other people who have anything they'd like to say or questions, questions and comments are directed towards the board.
Hello, my name is David Jaffe. I live on 2 Terrace View, which is one of the adjacent properties. I've been in the tenant of the topics 19 years now. And I can attest to their character and how well they maintain the property and how the neighborhood is actually improved. One of the questions I'm wondering is just because this is a four-family home, essentially. I would imagine the intent of the law was more towards buildings living in different floors rather than townhome style. Think about a city like Philadelphia where you have separate homes immediately adjacent to each other with a firewall in between, just as you described. So in some ways, they're being penalized because they're being treated as the same as sort of, a triple decker or something like that, rather than looking at it where each home has a separate entrance, it's separated by a firewall. In a way, there's a hardship for them because their style of home is being treated as the one probably the law was intended to cover. So, thank you.
Hi there, my name is Sheila Rakevitz. I live at 22 Pleasant Green West. I think I've lived there like 3.5 years. I don't know if there's anything I can say to add to this conversation, but I really love the apartment. I don't even call it a porch, to be honest. I call it an entryway, covered entryway, because really I can just kind of fit my bike. So it would be really lovely to have more space so I could enjoy, the fresh air. Yeah, that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Mark Candelor, I'm a resident of one of the units in question. I would just echo what the other two have said. I would love to have an couch. It is, as Sheila said, it's just kind of what we have is kind of just a place where we put our trash currently. And my partner, who I live with, has been pushing for this for a long time. She's been very jealous of the neighbors. They have big, nice porches.
Is there anybody online? Well, online. Nobody online. Okay. Anybody else have anything they'd like to say? Go ahead.
Normally a four-family, and you'd have to double check this, but each of these tenants have their own individual address. So it's 18 Pleasant Green West, 20, 22, and 24. Again, individual, not, oh, this is, 18 Pleasant Green West and 4 apartments, one on top of the other. So another reason why these are unique. I don't know if the way it's categorized maybe is not accurate. Because even initially there was some confusion when Chris, approached the building inspector to talk about this, thinking that it was a 2-family because it's 1824. Not thinking that maybe that was the reason for the confusion, but I'm not sure if that will be considered in terms of the fact that they are individual addresses, not one address as a 4-family.
I think that the intent on that, and the example that you gave, is that it is one taxable lot, and thereby it is a 4-family home on one taxable lot as opposed to 4 taxable lots, which would be the case probably in Philadelphia. But that would be my understanding of that.
Do I have the right to withdraw this request?
You have the right to withdraw without prejudice.
Or to do it.
We have to approve that, but
I would like to withdraw without prejudice, I guess.
all right. The applicant is requested to withdraw their application without prejudice.
Mr. Chair, if I may.
Yes.
I would recommend denying that request, and I would also recommend denying this variance application. Otherwise, this opens the door to us receiving this again within 2 years. I think I would like to make it, again, this is the board's decision, but I'd like to make it clear that we do not want to take in frivolous requests for variances. I was very clear with the applicant that this did not meet the criteria. If the board disagrees with me that this does meet the criteria, you let me know what those findings are. Please do. Otherwise, I would request that the board do not accept the withdrawal to deny this with prejudice.
I don't think these proposals.
I think that, an applicant being able to withdraw without prejudice is their right. They've already spent the money to do what they want to do. And if they decide they want to come back again and go through the process again, that is, there again, the applicant's right, any applicant.
How different would it have to be for it to be brought back? But if we don't accept the withdrawal and we deny the variance, how different would it have to be brought back?
I think it would have to be, I don't think we could just take a variance for this property for this porch. Yeah, so this project, if anything relating to a porch, it would have to be a entirely different project that they're coming to the board for. But any variance related to this porch would not be something the board would take.
I don't see why we, until the zoning ordinance changes, I don't see why we would hear a variance request for this porch at this property, because it's not like there's some size of porch that could be built that would fit. Unfortunately.
Times change, laws change. Who knows? Maybe we'll have an opportunity in the future. We wouldn't come forward with this under the same circumstances.
And how did that get there?
Right.
I just wonder.
The matter of fact, I'm Christoph Dabek. I'm the husband of Bojana, and actually, I happen to know the lady. She's been there for 70 years, and next door neighbor, she's been there, since she was born in the next, building, 2-family, and we happen to know everybody on that street because that's who we are there. And when we spoke to the lady, she said, she had permission to build. They actually had a permission to build a little bit to the side too. They were allowed, variance to build. It was sometimes, long time ago, but they were able, to do that, and we feel like it's a little bit unfair, because they were granted, the granted permission to do that, and we're not trying to make anything difficult for anybody here. Just simple, a thing, just connecting. We understand that the law doesn't, allow this, but speaking to you guys, we feel like, the common sense kind of comes, in play here, and we would really appreciate, if you let us, do this, because it's just, the law. I understand the law. It's on top of everything, but the common sense kind of plays, a little bit of role in here, especially as my wife said, we've been landlords, on that street for a long time, and we did a lot of improvements to that area. The Eastworks across the street. We we are local. We go to New City, brewery.
I've seen you a time or two.
We go to, all these different events, here and there, all the picnics in the back. And as I said, we feel a little bit like it would be really nice to improve that, that small porch, which is really nothing, to make this tenants happy.
Like who would come? Like, that's why I was asking about the risk. Who would come? And I probably don't understand the process. Who would come forward to challenge this such that your decision would be a legal risk? That's what I don't understand, because of how simple it is. It's like if I were wanting to build this huge garage on the back of the house, or wanting to do something really big that would impact neighbors, etc. That definitely is a different story. But this being quite simple and similar to what is done right across the street, what are the chances of someone coming forward and challenging the 4 criteria for a variance?
Yeah.
I mean, I know your tolerance for taking risk is very different than what I'm thinking right now, but it's just, if that's the way I'm looking at it, it's like, Really? Like, I mean, I'm not trying to diminish what you, but really someone would come back and say, hey, guys, tell me exactly how they met these four.
I think we're, could come up as if we have another applicant of comparable circumstances. And then we shoot that down, and then all of a sudden they come back and they look at an approval we made here that didn't have a leg to stand on, and then
So-
starts unraveling.
So when Dylan said earlier that things, like the decision you made earlier does not set a precedent, this would set a precedent if you approved it?
Variances set
Set
precedent.
precedents, okay, and the other one was not a variance.
And so like, it's sometimes the rules that are written are not entirely common sense. And this is just one of those examples where I feel like everyone on the board is like, yeah, this pretty much makes sense as a thing. And there isn't a good reason to say no, but legally we're pretty much obligated to say no. And if we say yes, then it's sort of like hoping we don't get caught, even though we know that we basically broke the law.
And that we made the right decision.
Right.
But
exactly.
that's not.
And it's like, it's interesting, like the board can sort of do whatever we want when it's an ADU and it's a specific
Special permit.
thing written in the ADU. That stuff that when it's a special permit, we can sort of just,
Right.
seems reasonable. Sure. But the state completely ties our hands behind our backs. And based on the story that you told, I would wonder if this may have been built with a variance before the state cracked down on variances. And the findings that we have to meet as a board to allow you to do the exact same thing are much more stringent than the findings that the board at the time of this porch being built had to meet, which is silly and it is unfair. But the part that's fair is that if anyone else with a similarly built structure within the state was trying to do the same thing, they would get the same denial at this point in time. But it is very common sense, and I really wish I also had your porch.
Yeah.
But I can't say yes, unfortunately.
Matt Faber, the owner of Bruce Construction. I'm their contractor. When I first originally filed for the permit, Dave Gardner told me that to file for a residential two-family, and that was accepted through the original. And then it was brought to my attention later on through findings that this was actually a mistake and then got recategorized as a four-family. So we kind of got to this stage as a oops. So we had everything basically filed, ready to go, and then realized that this was actually under a four-family, which wasn't under the drop-down when I selected. So we were told that this would have no problem going through, and then we ended up getting to this stage, and now this is kind of where we're at. So
Yeah.
I just wanted to add that if there would be any type of somebody appealed, that would be a thing to come up and say, well, we were misinformed prior to starting this entire process.
Well, I can say I'm sorry. But I can't say yes.
It's right there, but it's not.
I mean, I don't know, it's not for this meeting, but, if this can't happen, what can we do to influence the future of this, having the law make more sense for this type of a structure?
So what you can do
Uh-huh.
is you can appeal the city council to change the zoning ordinance.
But can we, if the
Yes.
state rule?
No, because you can have ordinances that are more stringent than state,
Right, but how could an ordinance be more stringent? than
because it
ours?
applies to four families, for multifamily in the city of Easthampton. Pre-existing non-conforming multifamily structures within the city could modify their homes.
Does the council do that?
The
Oh,
city council
yeah.
can do that.
You could certainly extend, if there was an interest to have single family and two family, have that protection extended to residential structures.
All residential
Mentioned.
structures, because it's not in, that's, like Dylan said,
Missing.
this, then there's a gap,
It's missing, yeah.
it's missing. Appeal to the city and say, hey, look, we have how many multifamily homes in the city? And how many of them are non-conforming? We want to be able to fix them. Fix the ordinance.
Because if it's a porch today, it's gonna be something else tomorrow for us, for this, this structure, and we have friends who have four families, and, not that many, but there are, and, they're gonna run up against the same problem. If it's, not conforming, well, I guess not conforming doesn't matter.
But this is what we're saying.
Okay.
You could add that as a criteria that multifamily homes within the city of Easthampton follow that same. It's a precedent because it's for single and two family. Why is it not for the other ones?
Still residential. but
It's still residential, and you could still just say, you still need a special permit from the zoning board at that point.
And it goes through the special permit process.
Then it goes to the special permit process.
And then
as
we
opposed
can
to
say
variance.
that's reasonable, yes. That's.
There's a little bit more, that would be, there's more work, but I think it's something we would pursue because if it's not one thing, it's gonna be something else.
That would be to great benefit to many, many people and tenants in.
Well,
in my personal.
if you just wanted to rebuild your front porch. Because technically by the law, you cannot rebuild the front porch as it stands.
You have to repair it.
To repair it, you have to.
Right. But if you wanted to pull a permit to,
Maybe looking at
That's a big one.
setbacks,
Is that hardship?
dimensions.
Correct, but what they're proposing still wouldn't help these folks out. I checked initially when this was coming to us, the one from the Equal Housing Partnership, I can't remember the whole name or acronym.
Easthampton Housing Coalition?
Yes.
Oh, that's different.
Yep.
I'm biased though.
Yeah, what they're currently proposing wouldn't address this specific issue. I checked that initially when this was coming to us to see, well, maybe this will get resolved in the future. Unfortunately, what's being proposed still doesn't address that. And I'll add, like, I have a lot of criticisms of not our zoning ordinance, but the zoning act in general, and the way that it does limit people to actually develop and to develop housing in the cities. Trust me, I know I administer it, but I do everything I can when possible to make it easier for people to come to apply. That if you do have to go through this process, if we can say yes, really try to let the board say yes again. That first denial of that ADU, if I were sitting on the board, I might have advocated a little bit more, but that's a special permit where you are all well within the right to say no. And generally, if you can say yes, well, say yes. What are we all doing here? But this one here with the variance, this is just a matter of state law. It's not even so much a question of, well, would it get appealed? It's, well, should the ZBA violate state law just because they can get away with it?
all right. So with that said, would the applicant have more sway, push, whatever you want to say, with the city council if they went to the city council and said, look, we own this property. We did what we thought we should do. We applied for a variance and we were denied because of this law. Are we better off to deny it to give the applicant ammunition to go and appeal to the city council?
And then one day it could come back as a special permit.
And then it in 2 months, it could come back as a special permit, still okay, because it's not asking for a variance after you've been denied for a variance.
I'm sorry, but that meeting would be different from the meeting that we
No,
have.
the council has the, I guess.
Yeah,
the
if
authority.
different rules, you would have liked to put different rules.
They can write the
Yes.
rules, we just
Yeah,
have to
different rules.
enforce them.
Yeah, we don't, okay, I get it. I get
They
it
can
now.
write the rules, the
Yeah.
different rules.
Yes, I see. Because the rules right now, no matter, even if we bring a million people here, it's not gonna do nothing, so I get it.
And it's,
Yeah,
I think you see, we all want to say yes.
I know.
Yeah,
And because
that's
because the common sense part
Right,
is obvious.
Who's hurt by this? No one, but it doesn't matter, I guess.
And renovating, actually talking to Matt, he's like, if you wanted to, like you were talking, change a wall, sometimes it winds up being more expensive to do that way, which is that economic hardship doing it the other way, but
Yeah, so it applies to everyone in their situation.
I know, yeah,
So that's why we can't vary
I
it.
know. So the question is, do you want to withdraw to the accession to be denial?
I have to go through the ordinance.
After the denial, we would be going to,
You could go appeal to the city council and ask them to change the ordinance.
well, I don't know if we call it an appeal.
But
Not a formal appeal.
not appeal,
a-
but you would go to the city and say, this is our situation. We have been denied because the zoning doesn't permit it. But yet, if it was a two-family, it would be fine.
I would recommend also going to ordinance subcommittee because city council only has the power to approve what the ordinance subcommittee authors. So if what they author doesn't include something that solves this, and then the subcommittee submits it to city council, generally speaking, I mean, there is like a back and forth process, but because they are working on this in subcommittee, if you can make it to one of those and speak, I think that would be.
Bring your pictures.
Yeah, bring your pictures for sure. These tell a good story.
So any other type of variance that we would ever need to get for this building, for anything else, it would not, we wouldn't be prevented from requesting a variance for any other, we would,
No. You'd be okay. You wouldn't be able to apply for this
for this
porch
particular
again,
one.
but if something in the back required a variance, and even if we had the same conversation where I say, I don't think it qualifies, you can then still apply for that too, just not this porch.
Keep pushing the rock up the hill.
And then you could apply for this porch under special permit if there was some change, even though you had a denial for a
Right,
variance.
and we have a better chance of influencing that change with a denial than we would with withdrawing, because there's nothing really.
I think so.
Yeah, it feels that way to me too.
And that's just a gut feeling. You're better off to say, look,
Because it's not like, we would be going back, changing the proposal, coming back with another variance. It still wouldn't work because nothing changes. The law doesn't change.
Right.
If there was something you could change to make this work, we would tell you what that was and we would continue.
Right.
Right.
So then I guess I withdraw my withdrawal.
all right. Any further discussion, comments, questions? Go for the trifecta, Max.
I'm ready. I make a motion to approve the variance request of Savick at for their 4-family home located in the ND zoning district at 18 to 24 East Green Street, West Map 136, Lot 32. The variance is in seeking of approval to demolish 2 porches, pre-existing, non-conforming. Wow, it's funny to look at those words there. 4-family home and construct a larger single porch that will extend 3 feet further into the front yard and setback.
Second. Okay, motion's been made and second. All in favor? All opposed? Reluctantly? So, all we did was give you ammunition. Fine. So, Gillian will write this up, at which point, go fight City Hall.
Yeah, and, and I understand that, you not recommended coming forward, but I think we have a next step as a result of having this conversation. So, appreciate that.
All right.
We're not evil. Not all the time.
All right. Our next meeting is scheduled for July 23rd. I think you said you were going to be on vacation.
I'm going to be on vacation. We currently have not received any applications. Nothing's been continued. So I think we can all finish.
All right. July is.
We should have scheduled
We're past the deadline.
We are.
The deadline is like a week in August. Like, actually, I think tomorrow. But we can go ahead and say August, and then even if they apply,
we've already said it.
We've already said it. Yep.
All right.
65 days, we'd still be within the limit.
Can I use those copies, or do you have to keep them?
Oh, no,
Here.
I'll save the paper. I'm not
Yeah,
gonna end
because
up
I'll
anywhere
use
useful.
it like the other meetings.
Absolutely.
Thank you. Thank you.
All right, thank you.
And then I don't want to get into this too much because I didn't put it on the agenda, but just to kind of get the thought here from the zoning board of appeals. 8.5, where we're currently at with the ADU ordinance. So right now, the state, they've got their guidelines, which if the town doesn't say anything, you follow the state, or if
Are you talking about Airbnbs?
ADUs.
ADUs. I'm still talking about ADUs.
Just ADUs, just ADUs, not Airbnb.
Okay.
Different. So the state, when they adopted their new regulations, essentially, if a city didn't have them, these are the rules you follow. We had ours, but we have an owner occupancy requirement, which the state specifically says you can't have.
Oh, right.
So it's been our director Allison's interpretation that we essentially have two paths forward, that you can go through 8.5 or you can go through the state regulations.
Both valid.
Yes.
So is the occupancy a requirement or not? Just depends on how we feel. What is with laws?
Yeah, it's a little wonky. Where essentially anybody who came to this board for special permit, you could very easily waive that requirement, kind of.
So why don't we just waive it?
The kid
Or is-
wants to say no.
Or is it part of, we can have more stringent laws on the state in that we can demand, we can set precedent, we can set law that says that you need to have a resident occupied ADU.
No, we cannot say
State
that.
said we can't say that.
Or we cannot at all.
cannot say that. But so that
Keep it in there.
because if somebody doesn't like that, then they just go through the state version, which says, well, I don't have the requirements, and then they're subject to those, right? Which in almost all cases, the state is more permissible, except the state says an ADU has to be 900 square feet or half the size of the primary dwelling. Ours only says 900 square feet. So somebody may, if they're owner occupied and want to build 900 square feet for their 1,100 square foot primary, well, they go through 8.5 because they meet the owner occupancy requirement, and now they don't have to do it.
Oh, God, Lord, make it more difficult.
So
Oh, my God. Okay.
now if they want to build non-owner occupied, then they follow the state regulations, which means they can't be more than half the gross floor area of the primary dwelling. That's the only quirk where you may want to go through 8.5, but in general, we typically use 8.5 because board's familiar with it, it works, and it's ultimately going to be what we adopt in the future. But I have been making some changes to 8.5. If the board's interested, I can bring it to our August meeting, assuming we don't have a particularly packed agenda, or could view it. Or I could even send it out to you folks, and you can give me feedback as well as.
Why don't you send it out? We'll give you feedback.
Like to, you will still ultimately be the arbiters of that, so.
If any of those come along, you're gonna spend so much time in that meeting trying to explain it to us. I'm so sorry in advance.
So
You'll never see, coming through the state application. I will make sure anything that's coming to you is always through 8.5. Because again, if it's coming to you, it's special permit, and you have the ability to just waive that owner occupancy.
The ADU requirement in 2014 was 800 square feet or 1/3 of the existing total residential area. Yes, 2014. Yeah.
Oh,
And it got
interesting.
changed in 21.
Okay.
So it did go up 100 feet.
Well, I did not
That's
know
the
that.
line with the state, when the state.
The state did theirs in 2020. Oh, right? That sounds about right. Or no, February 2025. This year.
I mean, the other change is that the state was by right, we weren't by right before. Like, we're doing that to align with.
In 2021, we made it by right. And
So we upped the square footage and made it like.
or maybe we were by right in 2014. I know one of the things we changed is saying that the owner occupancy requirement doesn't continue after if somebody sells the house.
30% is what it was? 33%, my goodness.
Wow.
People are trying to build ADUs on ranches.
It's less.
I mean, I know that we use the current ordinance, given that was once a thing.
So if you got a 1,500 square foot house, you can only live in 500.
Square foot, tiny little studio.
those are called tiny houses.
Yeah, literally.
All right. Motion for adjournment?
Make a motion to adjourn.
There we go. Any opposed?
This government meeting is brought to you by Eastworks and our local cable subscribers.